All right, here we go. Brand new Flyers Daily for the 19th of April, 2024. Flyers Daily presented by Ticketmaster. Make more memories live. I don't know if you guys kind of can do this same thing that I'm doing right now, but I'm in this mode of avoidance when it comes to the matchups for the first round of the Stanley Cup playoffs. You know, you kind of sink your teeth in and jump in and go, okay, this team's going to make the playoffs. There's a chance they're going to make the playoffs. It looks good they're going to make the playoffs. They control their own destiny to make the playoffs, and then they don't. I'm not in the mood yet to start looking at the matchups that will take place in the first round of the playoffs. Now, when it starts, I will tell you, I'm going to put all that aside, park it, because I love the first round of the playoffs, whether the Flyers are in it or not. Of course, I'd rather them be in it, but even if they're not, the first round of the Stanley Cup playoffs, I'm a hockey fan. I just love hockey, and I love good hockey, and I love the first round of the playoffs because, to me, it's not good hockey. It's the best freaking hockey ever, the first round. So I'll put it aside when it's time to start and look at the matchups. I already kind of know the matchups anyway, but there's some really intriguing ones. But that being said, I'm not there yet. Before we kind of get to our off-season program, first and foremost, I think tomorrow will be the first day that we don't have a pod. I think next week we move to 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So it's going to be weird today when you guys are hearing this to not have to record one for tomorrow after over 200 days straight of doing pods, live streams, broadcasts, everything. It's been a whirlwind. I've begun the process now of detaching myself from the season and kind of beginning the process of that detachment to recharge and, you know, begin the focus on what this offseason entails and all of that stuff. At some point, you have to detach from it to recharge, and I'm in that process now of kind of getting caught up on some sleep, and I'm looking forward to having a day where I don't have to think about what I have to do for the next day's podcast or record. But that being said, you know, this year was a lot different. It was a lot easier than past years where there were so many storylines and there was renewed interest and there was a lot of compelling things happening. Both good, bad, positive, negative, and all around the gamut. It was a season that provided a lot of conversation and I thought really fun talking points. Some of them not fun. You know, I didn't enjoy that 0-6-2 stretch. Didn't enjoy talking about it. Didn't enjoy, you know, the Carter Hart's departure from the team and everything that surrounded it. Didn't enjoy a lot of things. But it was not boring. And it was not just chalk playing out the string like it had been the past couple of years. So for that, we're thankful. And for that, we hope for great things going forward. But in this episode, kind of before we get to our off-season program of Flyers Exit Day interviews. Coming up today, Danny Briere and John Tortorella will address the media. We'll kind of dig into some of that in Monday's episode with Bill Meltzer and maybe a little bit next week based on what Danny Briere and John Tortorella have to say. And then, you know, we'll get into the process of looking at individual players and Exit Day interviews and, you know, look back at bold predictions and question marks and all of that stuff. We're going to do that all in the next couple of weeks. But before we get there, I thought today maybe be a good day to kind of empty out the inbox a little bit further. I've gotten so many emails from Flyer fans. Jason.Myrtetus, Myrtetus @gmail.com. Got a lot of DMs as well. So I thought we'd plow through a couple of those today and get ready for our off-season program beginning at some point next week. But our first one comes from Josh in Rockville, Maryland. He says, first of all, thank you for all the time and effort you put into the show. I'm an avid listener and appreciate your great work. Thank you, Josh. He says, I'm still processing the season and will be doing so for some time. We know now that beating the Caps wouldn't have been enough, but something is really bothering me from that game that I can't seem to let go of, perhaps because I'm a Flyers fan living in Caps country and would have taken great pleasure in helping end their season, the Caps season. He said the Caps were something like 28-5-5 when they scored first and 12-26-6 when they didn't. And based on that alone, the premature whistle in the first period that wiped out a potential goal was huge in my opinion. Josh goes on to say, do you know, are referees instructed to blow the whistle when they can't locate a puck? The premature whistle seems to happen more than we'd all like, and thankfully, it doesn't wipe out goals too often. But given what was at stake, it seems like something that needs revisiting. Any thoughts? Thanks again, Josh from Rockville, Maryland. Yeah, Josh, the rule is when the referee loses sight of the puck, he deems the play is dead, sometimes even before he gets the whistle blown. We've seen that in the past. But there is a continuation kind of clause, if you will, if the referee blows the whistle because he lost sight, but the continuation of the play propels the puck over the goal line, then the goal shall count. The problem with this one was he lost sight of the puck, and I think it was exacerbated by Charlie Lindgren, the goaltender for Washington, thinking he had the puck. Now, when a goalie makes a save, a lot of times, it'll hit you. You feel it hit you, whether it's in the arm, the chest, the shoulder, blocker, whatever it might be, and you may think you have it. And as a goalie, the first thing you do, when you think it's tied up in your body somewhere, you feel the initial hit, but you don't know what kind of where it goes from there sometimes because of all the equipment. So what you do is you just kind of lock your body into a position. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can kind of see me like just bring everything together, kind of cup it, and just hold your spot, thinking the puck's in there somewhere. I don't want to lift an arm, release it if it's there, and then have it hit off the back of my leg and go in. So you make the save, and then you just lock. You lock your body into a rigid position to presumably keep the puck contained within your body and your equipment. Well, that's what Lindgren did. The ref thought he had it as well, didn't realize it popped straight up in the air, blew it dead, and then when everybody hears the whistle, and you can see it in a replay, that everybody kind of stops playing, stops protecting the blue paint. Puck comes down, hits off Farabee as he's drifting there, ends up in the back of the net. So it's not really deemed a continuation. It's pretty self-obvious that it wasn't a continuation. It wasn't one goalie thought he made the save, puck goes through him, is trickling in, and just goes over by itself over the goal line. It does hit off Farabee, and you could see everybody loosen when the whistle blows. So that's the rule. You can't get caught up in it. It happens at a time that's not ideal. I remember there was a goal earlier in this season where a save was made and the puck shot up in the air, ended up on the left side out at the top of the circle. Everybody thought it was in the safety netting. It wasn't. Yegor Zamula moved up and grabbed the puck and shot it and scored into a wide open net because nobody knew where it was but him. That was earlier in the season. But, yeah, it is a big goal, the first goal in that game, obviously. And when you mention the Caps record, pretty much look at every team in the NHL. When they score first, the numbers are much better than when they don't score first. So, yeah, but you can let that one go, Josh. It wasn't any kind of malicious intent mistake from the referee. He also fell into the trap of reading the goaltender's, body language, thinking he had it as well. So, yeah, I can't get too caught up in that one. So, I know it sucks, and as you said, turns out it wouldn't have mattered anyway because Detroit went to overtime. Fred messages in. Fred says, Jason, I listened to the podcast today and debated whether or not to write a note all day. Your inbox is probably overflowing. Correct assumption, Fred. He said, as a Flyers fan, I expect the team to win, period. When they lost their spot in the playoffs, I was pissed. He said, I'm aware of the team situation, young, power play problems, goaltending struggles, injuries, and so on. He goes, I don't care. The team should have made the playoffs. What disappoints is a string of losses, especially after the All-Star break. But I hope this failure to make the playoffs puts a fire in the belly of the team so that it does not put up with a string of losses like we saw this season. Overall, the Flyers were entertaining, but as a fan, I expect more. Fred. Fred, I agree with you because they were in a position very late with control of their own destiny to get in. And I've seen a lot of people saying, well, they weren't even supposed to be in the mix for the playoffs. Like, okay, that's fine. That was before the season. But when you're in the final 15 games of the season and you control your own destiny, final 10 games, and you go 0-6-2 on that streak after the gauntlet of games, that is, basically the metaphor of ripping defeat from the jaws of victory. You had it. You just had to maintain it during that time over inferior teams, and they didn't. So I totally agree with you, Fred. And while I'm not pissed anymore, I've gotten past that element of it. When they got to that point and where they were, which they earned, I expected them to punch the ticket to the postseason. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And I'm not going to go back to September or pre-October 12th and when the season began and said, well, I didn't even think they'd be in this position. I didn't even think they'd be better points-wise than the year before when they had 76 points. It doesn't matter. That does not matter. That is ancient history. Fact of the matter was they earned the position they were in, but they didn't get it over the goal line. As far as it putting a fire in their belly for the team, yeah, I hope they learn from it. I hope they learn that you can't have a limp stretch like that against inferior opponents down the stretch. You got to go back, put yourself in a position again next year to be a team that controls its own destiny, but to show you've learned from it is by not having what happened this year happen next year. So really good email, Fred. I absolutely agree with you. John Lyon tweets or messages in rather and says, Jason, like you, I'm disappointed to see the end of the season for the boys. I hope it stings sufficiently that it inspires their return with vengeance next season. Lots of positive from the year, whether personnel or coaching. We all agree that something must change on the power play. What do you think it would take to bring Sam Reinhart to Philly? He's currently making about the same as Cam Atkinson per year, but put up 55 goals, 27 of which were on the power play already this season, and he's still in the prime of his career. He could be the difference maker for this team. Your thoughts? Yeah, Reinhart was an absolute animal on the power play this year for the Florida Panthers, and he's been a really good acquisition for that team. I think two things. I think, first of all, he's going to be a UFA, so he's going to get paid and he's going to get overpaid because I think this UFA class, even though it's not a great UFA class, is going to get overpaid because it's going to be premium rates plus. And it's going to be premium rates plus because it's the first year that we're going into a rising cap world. So I think teams are going to go even a little bit crazier with spending. And I don't know that this is the time for the Flyers to be paying premium plus in this arc of a rebuild. Again, I'm in the mood for big game hunting via trade. Don't know that big game hunting via free agency, it's the time for that right now. Now, to your other point, though, about the power play, you are dead right. Like, that power play this year was just mind-numbing at times. There was a little stretch in January and February where it looked decent, and then it just went right back down into the toilet. I mean, in the game against Washington, I believe it was, or New Jersey, they had a 5-on-3, and the power play could not have looked worse on a 5-on-3. So I don't know what needs to change there. I know a lot of people say, well, you need more high-end talent to have a good power play. Baloney, because there's teams with 10 percentage points higher than the Flyers that don't have the high-end talent. Like San Jose ended up being like a 20th ranked power play. If Flyers had that, they would have been in much better shape. San Jose doesn't have any high-end talent. So they've got to figure this power play thing out because in today's NHL, you got to be good 5-on-5. You have to. You just have to be good on 5. It's the one thing about Austin Matthews' season that is most impressive is that more than 50 of his goals of his 69 were even strength. You got to be good 5-on-5 because that's how the game is played most of the time. But in today's NHL, you have got to be better on the power play. Teams are clicking at 29, 30%. And you're clicking under 13% it is a huge, huge hindrance. That has got to be figured out, whether it's personnel, scheme, usage, whatever it is. I am thankful that one thing Flyer fans did not blame it on this year was the slingshot. Zone entry was not the problem. It's once they got into the zone that was the problem. Way too static, way too much standing still, way too little traffic around the goaltender, and that has got to be figured out. And that has got to be significantly better. Significantly better. If you're going to improve, that's got to improve. Penalty kill's got to remain good and be a strength of the team. Not saying it needs to score 16 shorthanded goals, but it needs to be a strength of the team. Special teams are important. The power play has got to be better. Got to be better. Frankly, it can't be worse. Let's get to Flyers and Hoagies. DMs me on Twitter, says, Jason, thanks again for another amazing season. I'm with you. There are only 2 seasons, hockey and the offseason, and I hate today. He said, my buddy is a Rangers fan, a Rags fan, and we've been spending the last couple of weeks hoping that round 1 would be Flyers-Rangers and talking about how fun it would be. He said, I'm crushed. I didn't think we'd go into the season with a chance at the playoffs, but I got caught up in the play, and, well, if the Flyers shoot, I want the puck to go in. I stole that line from another pod. He said, hope you don't mind. I guess I said that at some point. He said, but throughout it all, I start my day with you. Every morning drive to work, Jason and Bill on Mondays. You're my buddy who I chat with, and I'm in Massachusetts now and can't talk Flyers the way I did as a younger man. My wife doesn't get it, but you keep me connected, so thank you. Thanks for all you do. Thanks for all the time and energy, and thanks for another great season. Let's go Flyers. Let's bring it on next year. Yeah, Flyers and Hoagies would have been a lot of fun. It really would have been. Like, I do find myself musing at what the potential matchups could have been. I do. And Flyers-Rangers would have been a lot of fun. Let's get to one more. Nicholas Tucciaroni. I hope I said it right, Nick. He said, power play obviously continues to be a hindrance to this team and arguably cost them a playoff spot. Again, I won't boil it down to one thing. I'm not going to boil it down to just power play. I think it was power play. It was goaltending. It was team structure on defense for a period of time. I think it was a lot of things combined. But anyway, he said, over the past 10 years, the Flyers have only had a top-ranked power play 1 out of 10 seasons. It was ranked in the top half of the league in 1920 and compiled stats over the past 10 years, ranked 28th in the NHL. That's over a decade. Holy cow. He said, what do the Flyers need to do in the future to improve the power play? It seems to be a consistent issue despite player and coaching changes. Do they need a new system? Love the podcast. Thanks for your work. I think you have to study power plays that work. And all different kinds. Like, you can study the Edmonton Oilers power play, but to a degree, it's going to help you because that power play is predicated on Leon Draisaitl and Connor McDavid. Or you can study Toronto's power play, and it's predicated on the insane shooting ability of Austin Matthews. Or you look at Florida's power play, it's predicated on the vision playmaking of Barkov and the finish of Sam Reinhart. Or you look at, you look at other teams. You look at teams like Carolina. You look at teams around the league and the way they attack on the power play and what makes them difficult to defend. And you have to institute that. Power play is one of those things in hockey that is ever evolving. You have to keep attacking it in different ways. And I remember, was it talking to TK? Yeah, Travis Konechny was talking about this. And that, one of the reasons why he has success on the PK is when teams give them a little bit of space. He said he hates it when he's on the power play and teams just attack you because you have no space, and power play is about space. So you got to move the puck. So you got to look at all of the things that are working around the NHL, look at your personnel that you're going to have next year and figure out a way to deploy it in the best way to have more success on the power play. Got to figure it out, though. No more excuses. This power play last in the league thing cannot happen next year. Can't happen. I think it'll be a point of emphasis this offseason, and it needs to be. All right, everybody, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. We're going to take the weekend off. We'll be back Monday with Bill Meltzer. So we will join you then for a brand new episode of Flyers Daily.